The presidential race is on, and Iowa is ground zero. A GOP debate without Donald Trump, and Bernie Sanders closes in on Hilary Clinton. Here to handicap it all is campaign veteran Greg Mueller, and we'll throw the lines open to you. What do you think of the 2016 race so far? And finally, he's dedicated his life to a worthy cause, and though he didn't pursue his family business, his famous father did inspire his work. President of the American Wheelchair Mission, Chris Lewis, is here to talk about bringing the gift of mobility to those in need around the world. The World Over Live begins right now.
Now, from Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
A warm welcome to all of you joining us in the United States and the world over. Greg Mueller, your calls, and Chris Lewis are all straight ahead. If you'd like to comment on tonight's show, or if you have a question, I'll be live tweeting throughout. Find me on Twitter at Raymond Arroyo, or you can email me at worldover@EWTN.com. If you have a question about the political campaign, give us a call. The number, 1-800-221-9460 in the United States, and internationally 205-271-2980. Let's get to it. Here's the brief news from the world over this week. The prelude to the Iowa caucuses are, for Democrats and Republicans, a free-for-all. According to the latest CNN aggregate polls, Donald Trump and Senator Ted Cruz are well positioned to take the first-in-the-nation vote for the presidency on the Republican side. Trump is at 31%, Cruz at 26%. The rest of the GOP field is led by Marco Rubio, now at 13%. Trump's withdrawal from Thursday's Fox News debate in Des Moines has overshadowed the debate itself and dominated the airwaves. The Trump camp attributed the pullout to the perceived unfair treatment that Donald received by Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly at the very first debate. But it was a mocking press release from Fox News that pushed Trump over the edge. Trump staged his own alternative event to the debate, a fundraiser for veterans at Drake University. We'll discuss the wisdom or the folly of Trump's no-show and more in our next segment. On the Democratic side, insurgent socialist Senator Bernie Sanders is neck and neck in Iowa with former Secretary of State Hilary Clinton. Clinton stepped up her pace, adding a slew of campaign events across the state in a run-up to Monday's caucuses. And former President Bill Clinton is scheduled for daily events with Hillary the rest of the way. An Iowa loss could be embarrassing and possibly crippling for Clinton, as Sanders already leads her by double digits in New Hampshire. And abroad, the Italian Senate began debating whether to grant legal recognition to same-sex couples on Thursday. The center-left coalition government is pushing for civil union legislation, which would include allowing gays to adopt the biological children of their partners. Opponents to the measure took to the floor defending traditional marriage, arguing that a child has a right to a mother and a father. For nearly a decade, pro-family grassroots campaigns have blocked attempts to legalize gay unions. Italy is the last major Western nation that does not legally recognize same-sex couples. And Pope Francis has not waded directly into Italy's legislative debate. However, this past weekend, he emphatically defended traditional marriage during a Vatican speech. In an address to members of the Roman Rota, that's the Holy See's tribunal that reviews marriage cases, Pope Francis said that, quote, "there can be no confusion between the family willed by God and any other type of union," end quote. The Pope's comments appear to be referencing the debate at last year's Synod of Bishops and within the Italian Church, calling for greater acceptance for same-sex couples and cohabitation. Some Vatican watchers speculate that the Pope's comments may signal his intention to reaffirm church teaching on marriage in his upcoming document summarizing the Synod on the Family. That exhortation is expected in late March. We'll keep you posted. And in the wake of his country's international nuclear accord, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani visited Pope Francis in Rome on Tuesday. The 40-minute private meeting was the first between a pope and an Iranian president since 1999. The Vatican issued a statement saying the talks centered on the nuclear accord with the West and the important role Iran must play to combat terrorism and arms trafficking in the Middle East. The Vatican statement described the talks as cordial and indicated that common spiritual values were emphasized. Rouhani later remarked that he and the Pope discussed the need to completely eliminate weapons of mass destruction. Rouhani was on a European tour, signing several trade pacts following the lifting of international sanctions against Iran. And more terror attacks in Syria. At least 24 people were killed and another 100 injured in multiple bomb blasts in Homs on Tuesday. A security checkpoint was targeted. It was hit by a car bomb and a suicide bomber. Over the weekend, a bomb blast in the Christian neighborhood of Al-Qam Ishli has left 3 dead and at least 10 wounded. The city is a self-proclaimed autonomous territory, also known as Syrian Kurdistan. They are fighting against both the Assad regime as well as the Islamic State. Back in the United States, a surprise indictment of the videographers responsible for those undercover videos exposing alleged trafficking and sale of fetal tissue by Planned Parenthood. On Monday, a Houston grand jury cleared the abortion provider of any wrongdoing and instead indicted the undercover investigators responsible for the Planned Parenthood sting. David Daleiden, founder of the Center for Medical Progress, was indicted on a felony charge of tampering with a governmental record and a misdemeanor count related to purchasing human organs. Another activist, Sandra Merritt, was also indicted for tampering with a government record. The charges carry a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. Their videos began surfacing last year and purportedly showed Planned Parenthood's willingness to sell aborted fetal parts to researchers for profit, a violation of federal law. Planned Parenthood officials have denied any wrongdoing, but have since ended their fetal tissue program in the wake of a public outcry. Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Attorney General Ken Paxton said their respective investigations into alleged wrongdoing by Planned Parenthood will continue. And for the second week in a row, the United States Supreme Court has struck down a state's fetal heartbeat law. North Dakota's 2013 law never went into effect and would have banned abortions after the 6th week of pregnancy, when a baby's heartbeat is first detectable. Last week, the High Court rejected Arkansas's bid to enforce its own fetal heartbeat law. That state banned abortions at 12 weeks. And quoting a scriptural passage from Hosea, "I desire mercy, not sacrifice," Pope Francis called the faithful to prepare for the season of Lent. Taking into account the current Jubilee year, the Pope urged a special emphasis on the spiritual and corporal works of mercy. The Pope said that in these concrete actions, feeding the hungry, visiting the sick, and comforting our neighbors, faith finds expression. He added, "On such things we will be judged." Lent is right around the corner. Ash Wednesday is on February 10th. And it was literally a circus at the Vatican on Wednesday. During his weekly general audience, the Pope enjoyed a colorful performance from members of various Italian circuses, marine-themed characters, including acrobatic jellyfish, a baby crab, strange bikini-clad mollusks, and some very curious octopi populated the performance. After the show, Pope Francis congratulated the troupe members, calling them champions of beauty. And that was before Leo DiCaprio even showed up. Finally, I have something wonderful to share with you, some good news. The good folks at Random House Kids, the publisher of my forthcoming middle grade book, Will Wilder, The Relic of Perilous Falls, they have created the most beautiful special limited edition box for review copies of the book. And I thought some of you might like to have one. I think multiple family members will enjoy this adventure. It's really for the young and the young at heart. To win one of these specialty boxes, all you have to do is go to my Twitter or Facebook accounts and retweet or post the message about the book contest, and you're registered. I'll select 10 winners at random, and it's an amazing package. This was sent out to reviewers, and as you'll see in here, they've got this really cool tentacle wrap around the book and all kinds of goodies. A letter from Will and things that I think make it really special. So you can get one of those also if you email me at raymond@raymondarroyo.com. I know not all of you are on Twitter and Facebook. When you email me, include your contact info and put Will Wilder Contest in the subject line. Will Wilder, The Relic of Perilous Falls, the first of my Will Wilder series, premieres March 8th, but it is available now for pre-order, right now, at the EWTN Religious Catalog or wherever books are sold, and you can get some great deals if you pre-order. There's a link at raymondarroyo.com for both pre-order and contest info. I can't wait for you to meet Will. Adventure just got wilder. When we return, the first major electoral contests of 2016 is set to begin, and was the Trump boycott of the debate a good move? Greg Mueller joins us to discuss it all when The World Over Live continues. Stay right there and get your calls in now.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. The first major test of campaign 2016 gets underway this week in Iowa. The pregame show has been quite something. The GOP frontrunner Donald Trump left the debate, then other candidates joined him at an alternative event. What are we to make of this volatile and unpredictable political landscape, even among the Democrats? To discuss, I'm joined by the president of CRC Public Relations and a veteran of several unorthodox presidential campaigns or insurgency campaigns, Buchanan in '92 and '96, and Steve Forbes, 2000 bid. Please welcome Greg Mueller to the program.
Great to be with you,
Great
Raymond.
to see you, Greg.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with this. I've got to share this clip with you. This is Bill O'Reilly the other night on Fox, pleading, begging. I thought Bill was going to kneel down at one point and offer flowers to Donald Trump. He offered him milkshakes, but no flowers, to return to the Fox News stage after Trump decided he wasn't showing up. Watch this.
Will you just consider, I want you to consider, all right? Think about it. Say, look, I might come back. Forgive, go forward, answer the questions, look out for the folks. Just want you to consider it.
Well, what do you make of this? I mean, this was quite, this became a drama that went on for days, Greg. Was this a masterstroke by Trump, first of all, to say, I'm not doing the debate?
Well, I think, first of all, Trump is the epitome of the anti-establishment candidate. He is getting the reputation he's getting because he's sticking it to everybody. And Fox is on the table, too, as much as they're a great champion of a lot of conservative-oriented programming. And nobody's going to accuse Bill O'Reilly, Raymond, of being establishment. He's usually poking at them all the time. But it is a little slobbering to watch Bill offer milkshakes and everything else and almost kneel down, as you say, in order to be able to try to get Trump to come on the program. They were still, you know, tonight they were planning 2 debate segments. They didn't know which one they were pulling out. They were hoping that Trump maybe would show up at the last minute. None going to happen. But look, I think it's a risky play, but everything he does is risky in life. And I think that's the big challenge. Is it going to pay off? We don't know yet.
He's looking at the same polling numbers we are, and I just pulled his numbers from the summer when he announced to the president. He only dipped down twice. Once when John Boehner said he was leaving the speakership, and when Paul Ryan was sworn in. Otherwise, he has dominated, and it's the fuel, the oxygen of attention and media coverage that drives and is driving his candidacy. When I heard he was pulling out, I looked at this and said, it's bold, it's risky, but you know, it's typical Trump. It's counterintuitive. Everyone in this town would tell you this is the worst thing to do at this moment. I will bet you money tonight that this ends up redounding to his benefit.
Well, first of all, he's going to get a lot of media attention. That's what his whole campaign's about. He is what? He is reality television. He is always on his marketing message. He's always drawing attention to himself in some way. All the other candidates really don't know what to do with him. I think one big problem, though, is in Iowa, Raymond, they're really down-to-earth people there.
Yeah.
They want a discussion. They want a debate. I've seen some reports out that said people that will lean in his way, this is sort of pushing them away from that. And that's the real gamble here. He's a casino guy, so maybe he's rolling the dice with himself.
Well,
here.
I want you to see this. This to me is an exemplar of the way in which he uses media, even Fox, to promote an event running on other networks. MSNBC, CNN, and C-SPAN, at a minimum, are the ones airing his alternative event, which is purportedly a veterans event to raise money and awareness for veterans and, of course, propel his candidacy. Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee also join him. Just watch this.
Well, I understand your opinion, Bill, but tomorrow night at 9 o'clock at Drake University, we're going to have a tremendous event, and I'll have much more than 60 seconds, frankly, and we're going to raise a lot of money for the veterans.
On message, on message, on message, on message, you're fired. I mean, this is Trump.
This is great stuff. I mean, those of us in media relations and political consultings, we couldn't have a better guy in terms of being on message. And that's the thing about him. He's always got a way to calculate into what he wants to talk about. But again, we're going to see, you know, the jury's still out on all this stuff. He is rewriting the rules. We don't know what's going to go out in Iowa. We don't know what's going to go out in Hampshire. What we do know is people are fed up with Washington.
Yeah.
They're tired of it. None of the establishment candidates can seem to get a lane. All the conservatives and outsider sort of candidates, including Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina, Ben Carson, they're all doing really well.
Is this the sequel to the Buchanan brigades and Pat Buchanan's insurgency candidacy that took after the elder Bush, and then he made a second run, coming out of Ross Perot? Were they the forefathers of Donald Trump, who could be victorious?
I think it's kind of funny. By the way, Donald Trump, back in the day when Pat was raising these issues like immigration and the concern over border security and bad global trade deals that hurt American workers, you know, Trump's channeling all that. Trump was calling Pat some pretty nasty names back then. So the Donald has come a long way to Pat's side. But yeah, I think everybody seems to be a populist Buchanan Republican now. And it's working because those are the people that are doing best, because there is sort of a populism out there. There's a disenfranchisement from Washington and New York and the rest of the country.
See, I would argue exempting himself from the debate doesn't hurt Donald Trump for this reason. It did not substantially change the math when Trump was on the stage during these debates. He won every one, even though some of these he really didn't say very much.
Right.
So I think he's thinking at this point, hey, I'm leading the pack. I'm going to go with a feel-good rally over here. It's going to get just as much attention, if not more, than that debate, and I'm going to suck the oxygen out of the room.
Right, and he's doing that now. This happened in 1980 when Ronald Reagan said, I'm not going to debate George Bush in Iowa. Now, Reagan did wind up winning the nomination, if we recall, but when they all look back, you talk to any of those Reaganites, they were sorry they did that. They gave Bush momentum. So the question is, can Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, can any of those guys, Bush, can they get some momentum with Trump not sucking the air on the stage tonight?
We're going to continue talking here, but I want to give you a chance to jump into this conversation, the viewers, the listeners. You can call us at 800-221-9460 in the U.S. and internationally, 205-271-2980. You can also tweet me at Raymond Arroyo or email us at worldover@EWTN.com. We will get to your questions shortly. I know you have many of them about the nature of this race, the issues important to you. We'll get to all of that. Let's talk about Ted Cruz. He's the #2 guy. He's expected to do very well in Iowa. Is this an opportunity to get Ted Cruz, when he stands on that stage and Trump isn't there, do all of his competitors turn their fire on him?
I think there's a lot of truth to that, yes. I think Ted Cruz is going to be the front runner on the debate stage tonight. Rubio's going to go at him. Christie's going to go at him. They're all looking to break out. And remember, there's a very well-known reporter named David Yepsen. He's sort of the professor of all reporters of Iowa. He's now at a university at the Paul Simon Institute somewhere there. He said yesterday, everybody should take a timeout. Iowa is a late decision place. They go into those caucuses, Raymond. It's not a primary. They don't go in and push a lever to vote. They go in with their neighbors. They have a discussion about what they should do as to lead the country in the first vote. Those are taken very, very seriously. Almost a third of those Iowa caucus goers say they have not made their final decision. And remember, Rick Santorum was nowhere on the radar screen this time last time around, and he wound up winning Iowa. Nobody would have ever predicted that. So there's a long way to go, and surprises always come out of Iowa.
Okay, I want to look at the poll numbers. We'll put up a graphic here. This is the latest poll, NBC Wall Street Journal Marist poll. Trump leads the GOP in Iowa, 32% to Cruz's 25%, Rubio at 18%, Carson at 8%, Bush at 4%. Obviously, you know, Trump is the front runner. Let's move ahead to New Hampshire on this full screen. Trump also the front runner here, 31% support compared to 12% for Cruz, and then it dwindles after that. Kasich, Rubio at 11%, Bush at 8%. Your thoughts on what we're seeing? It seems that Trump is leading everywhere and that he's pulled away from the pack. Is there a way to change this dynamic this late in the game?
Absolutely. If the one thing Donald Trump has going for him is he talks about the polls more than he talks about policies. Okay, so he's the winning. I'm winning. I'm winning everywhere. I'm winning. Hashtag winning. And Twitter.
What's the old song? Everybody loves a winner.
Absolutely. If he loses Iowa, is he a loser? And do we go to New Hampshire with Donald Trump a loser? We don't know yet. But look, again, Pat Buchanan, my old boss, Steve Forbes, my other old boss, both those gentlemen were in single digits to low double digits going into the last week of the Iowa caucuses or the New Hampshire primary, and they wound up with double the numbers from the polls and what the polls showed. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen. But look, the difference is they did that against establishment moderate Republican candidates. Donald Trump, although he's got a past as I believe to be somewhat liberal and certainly more establishment in both parties, he's echoing and championing a very serious conservative populist message, and it's resonating big because people think he can fix things on the border, on immigration. I think those of us concerned about social issues, we should, and the courts and all that.
That's
Supreme
a great
Court,
segue.
Those are some real risky things we might be throwing our support behind if those anybody supporting that.
Greg Mueller, let's talk about religion, the social issues, how that is figuring or shaping this race. It seems a lot of these issues are taking a backseat. Now, Ted Cruz, it seems, is using a lot of them in Iowa to try to carve out and hold on to his evangelical lead. Though, I've got to, once again,
Trump's leading with evangelicals.
Trump's leading with evangelicals, 37%, right. Cruz at 20%, Carson at 11% in the NBC vote survey. What is happening here? Why are Bible-believing evangelicals and Rust Belt Catholics gravitating to and supporting Donald Trump now? Is it the issues? Is it those immigration, trade, those things sort of, pardon the pun, trumping everything else?
I think there's a little bit of that, but those people, first and foremost, love their God and they love their country. And they don't think the people in Washington love their country anymore by the way they behave. I'm not trying to say that they don't love their country. They do, but the way they're behaving, they're doing harmful things to the country. And Donald Trump's Make America Great Again theme is working. But I think we have to be very careful here. As conservatives, Trump is got a very questionable past when it comes to issues like the life issue, marriage. We have a Supreme Court that could have 4 picks. The next president could pick 4 Supreme Court nominees. That can change the court for decades. We've already seen with the little bit of a send button how they can change marriage overnight. When first asked about this on another program, when asked who he would pick as a Supreme Court justice, he talked about his sister, who's a Second Circuit Court judge in New Jersey, who had actually ruled against banning partial birth abortion in the state of New Jersey. That's not the kind of Supreme Court justice those of us who have been fighting for these issues want. He's also had some questionable things he said on marriage and even Planned Parenthood. He came out good for David Daleidon's great videos. We worked on those videos, if you recall. But then he said later, I would defund parts of Planned Parenthood. They do some good things. I said, no, they don't. I mean, you know, they're mostly in the abortion business and electioneering for Democrats. They've already endorsed Hillary. So there's some real questions that we really running the dice here. If we're not careful, we've got a Supreme Court and other important issues brewing. Can we trust him to handle those things?
You have something happening out there. Now, here's I'll tell you, just as an observer of this and not having dogs in any of these fights and certainly not affiliated with any of these campaigns, as I stand here and watch, it seems to my eye, we are seeing an emergence, and it's breaking late in Iowa because evangelical votes are at stake. You have several organizations, including one Catholic one, and a whole slew of pro-life women who've come out against Trump, and they're saying anybody but Trump, not Trump. Now, we had National Review doing a similar thing against Trump. Why, to my mind, my question is, why don't you advocate for somebody? If not Trump, who? Who else are you advocating for? And this seems to be the big problem. There is no one that these people can galvanize around and say, this is our guy, but we don't want him. Well, is that wise strategy for to throw rocks at your front runner when at least in voice he's saying, I'm 100% pro-life? I talked with Mike Huckabee today, And I asked him point blank. I said, Trump is obviously late to this pro-life fair. He claims he's 100% pro-life. Does that give you as an evangelical calm, or are you concerned about this? He said, I take him at his word. Ronald Reagan was the first governor to sign abortion into law in the first state in the Union. He became what is now regarded as the most pro-life president ever. Do you go down this aisle with Trump?
Well, I think you have to care about the Reagan analogy. Reagan started really thinking about things after those governor years. He really got in the trenches with the conservative movement. He wasn't giving money to the other side or to the equivalent of the Clinton Foundation like Donald Trump has, or paying Hilary Clinton to come to his weddings and things like that. Ronald Reagan was really having a transformation. I'm not so sure, at least I have seen that in Donald Trump. He did write an op-ed for the Washington Examiner about producing a cultural life. It was good. I don't recall, though, but I don't think he ever called for the overturning of Roe v. Wade. He said it was bad law, but he never called for it to be overturned. So there's a lot of concerns there. Again, do you trust, a lot of great things Donald Trump is saying. Do you trust him to take the conservative movement and the social conservative movement, the pro-life movement, to victory? I don't know. The jury's out on that.
Let's talk about the establishment choice. Things are seeming to firm up on that side as well. It appears it's going to be Trump versus somebody from this establishment camp. And those jockeying, moving to the front of the line, you've got Jeb Bush, you've got Marco Rubio, you've got Chris Christie, and Kasich. I mean, these are the four guys who are duking it out, and they are exchanging fire like I've never seen. Jeb Bush, I spoke to a guy who specializes in these super PACs. It's estimated that Right to Rise has spent $80 million this cycle, and we're not to Iowa yet. What does Jeb Bush have to show for that?
I don't know, not very much. I mean, I think Jeb is sort of a man without a planet, if you will. I mean, he's lost out there. His positions have sort of morphed to be sort of a more moderate liberal. He was a very good conservative governor, very pro-life governor, but he sort of transformed a different way. Where Trump is transformed to the right, Jeb sort of transformed to the left on Common Core and education, and a little bit on immigration, obviously. Some people in the conservative movement have issue with that. I just don't think he ever sort of got his sea legs. And the other problem is, and this is one of my beefs, I don't think we've nominated a great communicator since Ronald Reagan. And Jeb Bush is not a great communicator, and we live in the communications age. Donald Trump's a good communicator. Marco Rubio's a great communicator. Carly Fiorina, don't count her and Ben Carson out yet. They got great ground games in Iowa. Iowa produces surprises.
But Iowa is also notorious now, Greg, and sadly known for picking the guy who doesn't win the nomination.
Well, that's very true. That's very true. But it is also known for weeding the field. I mean, the old saying is, and I still think it holds today, you either got to win, place, or show, or you're pretty much done. So for a guy like Marco Rubio tonight in that debate, that Fox debate, big deal. He's got to produce. Chris Christie got to produce. They got to be talking to the people in New Hampshire if they're not, if they think they don't think they can do very well in Iowa. So a lot of challenges for these folks. I don't know who's going to emerge as the establishment. First time in my lifetime, there's so many establishment candidates running that none of them can break out.
Do they get out after Iowa or New Hampshire?
I think nobody will get out at that level until at least after South Carolina. I think Jeb Bush isn't going to get out until after South Carolina. They're all going to throw in.
But he's not going to stay until Florida if the numbers hold as they are.
I don't think so.
With Trump 48%.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think so. Nevada's in there too now, you know. So it's every, and don't forget, things are a little bit different. On March 1st, you got the SEC primary. That's where Trump and Ted Cruz are very popular. Remember, Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum caused a lot of pain for John McCain down the stretch in those southern states.
Let's talk just for a moment about religion, the way it's been used in this campaign. We see a lot of what I would call religion sort of propagandizing in the last days. I mean, some candidates basically doing videos with altar calls at the end. I mean, you know, I believe Jesus Christ is my personal savior, and here's what I mean, are we electing a pastor-in-chief or a commander-in-chief? Your thoughts on that sort of brazen use of religion to sway chunks of the electorate? Wise or a bridge too far?
Well, I think when
we haven't heard these people talk in these terms before.
Right. I think there's two ways to look at that. One is, I think people in the country out there, again, outside of Washington and New York, generally have strong Christian or Judeo-Christian values that are getting lost, especially in the Republican Party. And some Reagan Democrats, they are really people who believe in something, whether it's God or a higher power, whatever it might be. They believe that values are important. So that's one thing. So I think it's important, but trying to fake this at the 11th hour is really not a good idea. It looks like you're part of what everybody's mad at in Washington. But what I think is being lost in this, which is maybe the more important part of it, is the discussion over the attacks on religious freedom by the Obama administration and by a lot of liberal Democrats. Gone are the days of the great Governor Bob Casey of Pennsylvania, the Democratic governor. I joke with my friends, JFK, he might have to run as a Republican in this current Democratic Party. They are just so far left on these issues, and the attacks on the Little Sisters of the Poor and the attacks on faith and how they're continuing to ram that stuff every day, whether it's the Beckett Fund or Liberty Institute or ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom. There's so many cases out there. They're going up 100% or more. About attacks on religious freedom. I think the candidates should be talking about that. Like, I'd like to know, is Donald Trump or Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio going to overturn Obamacare's abortion mandate? I mean, we're being forced to pay for abortion in Obamacare that is completely failing the American public. Where are the candidates on these? I'd rather have more discussion about these religious issues and religious persecution in the Middle East, what's happening to our Christian brothers and sisters. There's not any of that in this campaign, and I think that's a shame.
Yeah, these other issues are dominating. And the economic pain being expressed by Trump, the worry about national security and immigration, and these trade issues, I think, are coalescing and just overshadowing everything. You're not even getting to that level, but you're very right. The choosing of the next possibly 4 Supreme Court judges is a heavy and grave responsibility of the next president.
And we've got to have learned our lesson, and I hate to say this, but we've got to make sure the next president, hopefully a Republican, understands that in picking one of those potential 4 nominees, we are picking someone with a storied, constitutional, limited government record in the court system, that we don't take any risks. I think we're a little bit surprised by Chief Justice Roberts, and one of the reasons that he was put up was because he didn't have a long record of much of anything. And I think those days are over. I think Jeb Bush has been talking very good about these issues. Marco Rubio to a point, so's Ted Cruz. Again, this is an area where we know nothing about Donald Trump, other than he might have appointed his sister.
Well, no, he did say that when asked who his favorite jurist was, he said, I like Clarence Thomas, and I'd appoint more justices like him.
I want to believe that, but after he talked about his sister, again, who ruled in favor of partial birth abortion, I think somebody actually pulled him aside and he listened. You better not say that anymore. You better talk about Scalia justices or Thomas justices, because you're going to get yourself in trouble. It's a big deal, and they're not talking about it enough. I hope we see it on the Fox debate.
We shall see what happens. 1-800-221-9460 is our number in the United States. Internationally, the world over, you can call us at 205-271-2980. You can tweet me at Raymond Arroyo or email us worldover@EWTN.com. When we return, it's open line time. What issues are important to you? What are or aren't you hearing in this election season? Greg Mueller and I will try to answer your questions and comment when the World Over Live continues. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to the World Over Live. I am joined once again on set by the president of CRC Public Relations, Greg Mueller, a veteran of many campaigns. We're discussing this wild and woolly presidential race. What issues are important to you? Email us, worldover@EWTN.com, or you can give us a call. The number's on your screen, 1-800-221-9460 in the U.S., or 205-271-2980 internationally. I want to look at the Democrats for a moment. Do we have that bite ready? The Vice President Joe Biden, spoke to a gathering of Democrats, a retreat, and he was musing on the possibility of a Trump nomination by the GOP. Can you roll that bite?
We may be given a gift from the Lord in the presidential race here. I don't know who to root for more, Cruz or Bush, or what's that guy's name? He's having a fundraiser for veterans tonight, I'm told.
Once again, you know what this indicates? The dominance of Donald Trump. He drives every conversation. I mean, I can only imagine the frustration that Cruz and Rubio and Christie and these other guys feel. They're doing all this stuff. They're spending millions of dollars. And yet Donald Trump pulls out of a debate and hosts his own extravaganza, and suddenly the oxygen disappears and they can't get a break. Even Biden is talking about him. Is this a gift to Democrats?
Oh, I don't think it's a gift to Democrats. I think they got to be careful not to underestimate Donald Trump. I think one of the problems is a lot of Republicans have been underestimating Donald Trump. So I wouldn't, if I were old Joe, I wouldn't be smiling so much. I will tell you, one thing about Donald Trump that I think people have to be aware of is just like there's some anger and frustration on the Republican side with the leadership in Washington, the union worker and the union individuals that are on the front lines of the engine of our economy out there have been getting really pretty rough time by their own union bosses and their own Democratic Party. You're not going to hear Bernie Sanders and Hilary Clinton say they're going to stand up to bad trade deals and protect the American worker. You're going to hear Donald Trump say that if he gets a nomination. And I will say, if he gets a nomination, while he might lose some constituencies, he will gain some of those Democrat constituencies that are JFK, Ronald Reagan constituency, blue-collar, middle-income working families in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. I'm not advocating for him here, but Smiling Joe better be careful. It might come back to bite him in the butt.
Let's look at these Marist polls before we go to the calls. This is the Marist Democratic poll. What it shows, a tight race in Iowa between Clinton and Sanders. Clinton at 48, Sanders at 45, almost within the margin of error. And then New Hampshire. In New Hampshire, you have Sanders at 57. Of course, it's close to his state of Vermont. Clinton at 38. He was up, Sanders was only up 4 points a month ago. And
so I think a couple things going on there. One, I don't care what you are, conservative, liberal, moderate, libertarian, socialist, I guess we have those in the race now. You want to like your candidate. And Hillary Clinton, I don't think to a lot of people, including Democrats, is very likable. That's why Barack Obama rose and he is where he is today. And I think that's a real challenge for her. She's a bad campaigner. She doesn't come off as warm and likable. And Bernie Sanders represents that anti-establishment wing in the Democratic Party.
And he's appealing to some of the same people Trump is. Disaffected union workers, Rust Belt Catholics. There's a kind of, they like his fight, they like his fervor, and that he's speaking to their pain. The question is the divergent prescriptions for curing that pain. And that's where the rubber
huge tax increases. And don't forget, he and the Donald agree on single-payer health care. We always forget that Donald Trump said that in the debate.
He's backed off of that.
I know, he says and backs off of everything. I mean,
well, that's what it means.
Right, he's a politician then, right? So I think Bernie Sanders is another embodiment of the anti-establishment wave that's shocking the country.
Joan from Florida, you have a question. Welcome to The World Over. What's your question, Joan?
Yes, thank you for taking my call. Good evening. I will agree with both of you. I have been listening to you for the last several minutes. I appreciate all that you're saying, but I'm in a quandary. I'm one of those angry citizens. I have been very active. I have been very active in from the very get-go when abortion was even a question whether or not we were going to accept it as a nation. Mr. Trump scares me to death. I'd like to know just exactly how long he's been a Republican, number one, and number two, why, how is it he is running on a Republican platform when he is not really pro-life? Thanks to Phyllis Schlafly, they have that written into the Republican platform, and in order to be on
Joan, let's leave it there so we can get to your question. Let me get to your question. We'll get to both of them. First of all, how long has Trump been a Republican?
I don't know that anybody really knows that. I think that's part of the problem.
Well, he ran in at least since 2008.
At least in 2008, we could say he's a Republican. We don't know how far back it goes, but he did Democrat-oriented things as a Republican, which might get folks like your caller a little bit concerned. But again, this is the big issue of the day. Trump is raising a lot of issues we all care about as Republicans and conservatives and populists for the working people and all that. But can we really trust him? And I think that's where voters are going to have to make this decision. It's a tough call.
Yeah, and then the pro-life question, you know, would he run on the GOP platform that Phyllis Schlafly authored? Curiously enough, Joan, Phyllis Schlafly just backed Donald Trump. She endorsed him. Yep. So you have a strange confederacy of endorsements on all sides of this campaign. You know, you've got evangelical leaders siding with Trump. You've got other evangelical leaders siding with Cruz. You've got pro-life people here, others excoriating him. Then you've got a legendary figure in pro-life circles and Republican circles, Phyllis Schlafly, endorsing Donald Trump. It is for the voter, I think it's very confusing watching this.
Well, and I think that's why it's going to really get down to them. You know, I think at the end of the day, endorsements only mean so much.
Yeah. Ruth from Pennsylvania, you're on the world over. Very quickly, what's your question, Ruth?
My question is, we hear a lot about the evangelical vote, and about the evangelical
Darling, don't listen to yourself
vote.
on TV. Got to turn the volume down. Go ahead. What's your question, honey? Okay, I'm going to leave Joan because I'm going to run out of time if I don't go. But she's asking, what about the Catholic vote? We hear about the evangelical vote. What about the Catholic vote? The reason we're hearing so much about the evangelical vote, of course, is it is an outsized influence. Almost half of the electorate in places like Iowa, South Carolina. It has a real influence, right?
Well, I think that's exactly right. And that's why I think some of these issues on the social issue side are going to impact, especially the faithful Catholic vote.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to a lot of times in the Republican party. But those Catholics, that Catholic vote is also measured. Trump is hitting their interest when he talks about global trade deals that are hurting middle Americans. They're feeling that pain. And he's hitting those people. Also, border security on immigration. We keep overlooking that. The American people overwhelmingly have been asking for Washington to do this for, what, 2 decades at least now? And they keep saying they're going to do it, and they don't. And so Donald Trump is saying, I'll do it, and I'll build a wall and put my name on it. That's a security issue. These are trade issues. They're worker issues. That appeals to Catholic voters.
I also think there is some consternation among Catholics because the Bishops' Conference, the Church, has always been supportive of immigrants. And the question is, how do you deal with immigrants? Yet there is this lingering concern, particularly in the national security realm. Who's coming into the country? Shouldn't we vet them? I think in the embrace of Donald Trump, you also have a backlash against, I think, a one-stop shop solution in the Catholic Church. And you're seeing some of that consternation. So a lot of Catholics you see swinging toward Trump, even though these issues seem, on paper, diametrically opposed to the Church's position or stated position. Yeah. So we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, and I think a couple things.
On issues like trade and immigration.
Right. And I think also some of things have changed a lot over the years since Pat Buchanan run, for example. He warned about a lot of these things happening, and then they started happening. We've got infiltration across the border, potentially of ISIS. They're abusing UN refugee camps where Christians in those camps in the Middle East aren't even there because ISIS runs them. So ISIS is infiltrating them to get into this country potentially. Then you've got Kate Steinle, the young gal that was walking with her dad that was shot by an illegal immigrant who had a very long criminal record. Yeah. People ask themselves, what's going on in our own country? We can't do that. On the other hand, we're very loving people. So, I mean...
Yeah. I want to get one last call in. Joan, I believe, from Colorado. Josephine from Colorado. Sorry, Josephine. Your question very quickly before we run out of time.
Yeah, Raymond, and all the debates they've had, I've never heard, and they haven't made it clear which one of our candidates is truly and positively against abortion.
Well, they're all on the record as saying they are against abortion on demand and Roe v. Wade. The question is to what degree, how deeply committed they've been involved in this cause. This is something I heard from Rick Santorum today. He said, you know, other people talk about this. I was actually doing something about it for a long time. Your thoughts?
I think you're exactly right. But again, I think there's people like Carly Fiorina who've used the pro-life issue very well. So is Marco Rubio. So is Ted Cruz. Again, it's still a question of where Donald Trump is on this. But we need to get serious about electing pro-life candidates to office again.
Greg Mueller, thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me,
We will continue to watch this crazy time evolve. And, you know, the phenomenon of Donald Trump at the center of this, it is a remarkable thing to watch and chronicle for people.
In.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Greg. When we return, changing the lives of people in need 4 wheels at a time. philanthropist and president of the American Wheelchair Mission. Chris Lewis joins us when The World Over Live continues in a moment. Don't miss this.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. We often take our independence for granted. How often do we think about the act of getting up and walking across a room? For many throughout the world, that simple act is impossible. My next guest is dedicated to improving the lives of physically disabled children and adults all over the globe. Chris Lewis is the president of the American Wheelchair Mission, and as I discovered, he was inspired to pursue this mission by his father, Jerry Lewis, and his incredible work with the Muscular Dystrophy Association. Here's my conversation with Chris Lewis. Chris, where did the inspiration for the American Wheelchair Mission come from? Where did it derive?
Well, it wasn't actually mine. It was by a wealthy real estate investor who had the idea of starting a wheelchair delivery mission back in the year 2000. And I received a phone call, having known this person through the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and asked me if I would help him start it. So we started that foundation and ran it for 9 years and delivered about 750,000 wheelchairs to 150 countries.
Unbelievable. Give me a sense of how great a need this is. The World Health Organization claims there are about 20 to 25 million people who need wheelchairs. At least that was the figure back when you started this effort. What is the real number?
Back when we started, they told us that it was 20 or 25 million people. We know today that the true number is in excess of 100 million people worldwide. We were told by the Prime Minister of India that they have over 100 million disabled people just in the country of India, but that's all forms of disability. We know that the census takers don't see these people who can't walk because they never come out of their homes.
Because it's a sense of shame that they have this
Many
disability.
cultures, there's a sense of shame. They think that they are cursed for having done something wrong in their life, et cetera, et cetera.
Tell people what you do. I mean, you don't just collect money and then send the wheelchairs. You actually go and deliver them.
Yes,
What has that been like, and why do you do that?
Well, we raise the money for the wheelchairs. We deliver a wheelchair that would sell for more than $500 in a medical supply store. But because we purchase them by entire 280 wheelchair containers and ship them from the factory to the country of destination, we can deliver that $500 wheelchair with every $150 donation we receive. That's delivered, cleared, and to the end user, which we estimate every wheelchair we deliver changes an average of 10 lives. The reason we do that is because children can go to school if they have a wheelchair. Adults can go to work and take care of their families. The elderly can get out of a bed they might have been for 5, 10, 15 years. I mean, I've physically lifted people out of a bed they hadn't been out of for 15 years.
My gosh.
And now the first thing they're going to do is go to church and pray for us so that we will be blessed to continue blessing others.
What do they tell you? What have you learned from the disabled through this and people with disabilities?
Well, probably the most touching thing is that they believe we're answering their prayers. And it doesn't get any better than that for me. But the fact that we are coming from another country just to be there, to come into their home, to give them mobility and change the life of not just them, but every member of their family in a positive way, that we're angels. We're their guardian angels coming from another country, coming to help them.
And who is giving? Who gives to support this effort? I know the Knights of Columbus are involved, the Rotarians. Who else? The general public?
General public. The Knights of Columbus are the largest driving force we have in the United States. Just this past weekend, we were up in Union City, California, where we do what we call Wheelchair Sunday. So we speak at every Mass, show a video, and then do a collection. So we raised approximately $30,000 this past weekend, and this is what we do every weekend that we're invited by the Knights Councils or by the pastors of these parishes around the United States.
So it really is a church-generating effort.
Very much so. It's a church-generating effort, but basically all we need to do is let the public know what we need and how easy it is to do. If anybody has had somebody within their family who's needed a wheelchair, they know they're very expensive. So when they see the quality of the wheelchair we deliver for only $150, first of all, they can't believe we can do it.
Yeah, you can't do it.
Yeah. And there's a science behind that. You got to be able to navigate the custom systems, and I have to fight hard. That's why I wear my St. Michael's medal, because I have to use that sword on very, very frequent occasions.
I was amazed. You all have gone to far-flung places, Afghanistan, India. Where else do you go? Where would you like to go that you haven't been able to penetrate yet?
Well, on a yearly basis, we are always in Vietnam, Philippines, Mexico, Haiti, Holy Land, United States, and many other Latin American countries. We've been to Papua New Guinea. We've been to some very remote developing countries. Africa is very difficult because the overland transportation is so corrupt and so difficult to navigate through. But there are many parts of the world where there are large communities of younger people who are physically disabled, such as Sierra Leone. They can't ever go to school. We give a wheelchair to a young Sierra Leone teenager. They're starting first grade at the age of 13. They've never been able to go before because their parents couldn't carry them to and from school.
You don't even think about all the fringe benefits, all the things that are closed to you because mobility's not there.
Absolutely. There's so many stories. There's a little girl in China. She was a 12-year-old girl that we gave a wheelchair to in Guangzhou, China. And there's always barriers because of the translation, but we had a translator that said she wanted to tell us something. And so we came over to her, and she said that the gift of the wheelchair was like a beam of sunshine that warmed her heart. Oh. We're in tears.
Yeah, of course.
And just so many examples of people who have been able to better their lives because we gave them that simple mobility. And then we come back to these same places year after year as often as we can. So now they're working for government agencies to help other people get wheelchairs. And people who get mobility from us almost always want to give back and do whatever they can for those who weren't as fortunate.
To help others.
So I always tell people, I feel like we're exposed to the best of humanity. Not only the people that want to donate the money to help others, but also the people who are receiving. And these people have nothing, but the common denominator is they love their families as much as we love ours. And when we bless them, they want to bless others.
They want to pay it forward. I love it. And so you basically operate outside of the United States. It's an external mission, not an internal one.
It is an internal one as well. Through the Knights of Columbus, we have delivered an average of 2,000 to 3,000 wheelchairs a year within the United States to veterans who do not qualify for VA benefits.
Oh my God.
There are many people who have never registered with the VA. They're homeless, whatever they are. They're people in need of wheelchairs, and if they have a positive step up in their life to be able to get from point A to point B with mobility, we supply it.
Tell me about the 39 years that you spent at your dad's side from the time you were a teenager, working on the MDA telethon. How did that inspire this work that has become such a part of your life?
Well, I think the telethon inspired most everything I'm doing nowadays. I can actually remember the pivotal moment in my mind in 1978 when I saw my dad dance on stage with a woman who had been basically cured of myasthenia gravis by the new plasmapheresis technique that was developed by MDA. And I said, this is what I really want to do. So when people say to me, well, why didn't you follow your dad in his footsteps? I said, I did. They're just the footsteps you didn't really see. And that's what led me to it.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Well, thank you for your great work, Chris.
Thank you.
You can learn more about Chris Lewis and support the work of the American Wheelchair Mission by visiting their website, amwheelchair, one word, amwheelchair.org. And by the way, our interview with Jerry Lewis is still one of the most watched videos of the year. You can find that on our YouTube page. Well, that is all the time we have. Until next week, the show continues on Facebook and Twitter. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. The links are at RaymondArroyo.com. Don't miss our show next week. Until then, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, thanks for watching. I'm Raymond Arroyo from Washington, D.C. Bye now.